Engage mercifully, work holistically, speak truthfully, and believe in miracles. And that last one's my favorite one, I would say. But, they're somewhat self-explanatory, but these, for lack of a better term, are like our core values as an organization, how we live out our faith. God does miracles. He can heal people and he can be a part of our day-to-day. And so just remembering that he's there and he's working in all of our different places and all of our hearts to help our staff and volunteers and those who work with our different guests and participants, help them feel loved and help them even just be empowered to take those steps that are really difficult. Viewing people just through a lens of love and through non-judgment and just trying to realize that there's a person, there's a story, there's a background, just like we all have. All have the place we grew up, our different circumstances, different cultures that we come from, and we bring that with us, and so do they. And so whether it's seeing someone on the streets or walking by or whatever, I think it's just trying to have that compassion. So I would definitely just reiterate that point.
So in other words, engage mercifully.
Engage mercifully. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Wow, you're hired.
What if ancient scripture held the key to our modern struggles? What if our pain was the starting point of God's greatest work in us? What if God's word wasn't just something we read, but something that reads us? Welcome to the Bible Chat Podcast. I am your host, Alina, and I am honored to interview theologians, therapists, and compassionate guides from across the Christian journey to explore these questions and more. Today, I am joined by a dear friend and inspiring leader, Alexxa Gagner, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at Denver Rescue Mission. A passionate servant of Christ, Alexxa has dedicated over 15 years to serving those experiencing homelessness and poverty, bringing compassion and faith to her work. With a background in journalism and public relations, she has led the mission's communications effort, sharing stories of hope and transformation. In this episode, we explore the incredible work of Denver Rescue Mission and their Christ-centered approach of engaging mercifully, working holistically, speaking truthfully, and believing in miracles. This episode, like all others, is a humble attempt by the Bible Chat app to share stories of faith and service, pointing to our loving Lord in a world filled with challenges and a deep hunger for meaning. Thank you for joining us, and please enjoy.
Alexxa, welcome to the Bible Chat Podcast.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you here. I have known you for over 15 years. For those who don't know you, tell us a bit about yourself and who you are.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Alexxa Gagner, and we have known each other through church, our St. Catherine community, for a long time. And it's my privilege to know you because you are inspiration to me. But I've worked at Denver Rescue Mission for just about 15 years, so the entire time I've known you.
That's amazing. How did you get to work for Denver Rescue Mission?
It's really interesting because I really do believe the Lord led me. I have a background in public relations and journalism degree, and when I moved to Denver, I found myself without a job, and my past skill set aligned with a position that was open at the mission, and so I really just feel like it was meant to be. And so I started there as the public relations coordinator in 2009 and just have stuck around. They can't get rid of me, but I'm now over our communications department.
Thank you for sharing that. How did working at Denver Rescue Mission impact you on a personal level?
It's really impacted me over the years in multiple ways. So we are a faith-based organization at the core, and that is part of what drew me to want to work there. Being able to sit with your colleagues, and whether you're talking about faith or being able to pray before a meeting, it's really been awesome for me. So just those little moments, even throughout a day, where it's that constant reminder of the Lord being with you and your kind of camaraderie with your colleagues has been amazing. The other thing I would say is I didn't have a background necessarily in working with people experiencing homelessness or maybe when I was younger, a little bit of exposure, but my eyes were really open to people's experiences and that everyone comes from a different walk of life. There are so many challenges that people go through that can lead to either being on the streets or going through an addiction. And so I've just been able to open my mind to just how people are and how we're all fallen, and there's so many things in this world that can impact us, that one thing leads to another, and you realize it's not about you can just get a job, oh you're lazy, this, that, just a lot of those stereotypes that can fly around that even in our minds, like driving around Denver or wherever you live, can just have those judgments. And not that I'm not perfect, but I think just it really makes you check yourself and realize that, we all come from a different place, and how can you just view things through their lens or maybe put yourself in their shoes?
Yes. It's interesting when you were saying about I get to pray before meeting. So as you know, I've worked with St. Catherine for 18 years, and I probably had hundreds of meetings with Father Lou and ministry leaders. But it's very interesting. Every time I had a meeting with Father Lou, it was 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 3 times a day. We would always start with a prayer. And I don't, even though I just loved it, I don't know why, for Father Lou. One day I asked him, I said, do we really have to start every meeting with a prayer? So he said,
like,
yes,
this is taking
absolutely.
an extra 5 minutes, Father Lou.
Yes, exactly. But it's interesting because now, looking back, I'm like, oh, what a privilege to work with him and to have just extra reminder that there is something else and someone else we are responsible to, and just to bring this awareness of the transcendence in our day-to-day activities. But yes, I had points in my ministry, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like too much prayer.
Wait, this is the 5th prayer of the day.
We just finished the liturgy and we have 3 meetings.
Do we need one more?
Yes, exactly.
That's so funny. I think the other thing I'll just add is that some of the meetings I've been a part of where leaders at the mission will pray, I really do feel at the core that we're asking the Lord to lead us through whatever the meeting's about. And I think whether you work in secular or not, you can do that on your own, you know, when you're working wherever. But I also feel like I am now in a bubble because I have worked there for so long. So I feel like if I were to work somewhere else, it would be like a shock. So I'd be the opposite. Like, can we pray? Anybody want to pray?
I know. Yeah, we get used to things, you know. Let's talk about Denver Rescue Mission. Will you please tell us what is Denver Rescue Mission and tell us about the incredible work you guys are doing?
Yes. So Denver Rescue Mission exists to serve people experiencing homelessness and poverty. Our goal is to help people come out of those situations, really one life at a time, helping people end their homelessness, end their situation, get out of poverty, get out of an addiction, one person at a time. So the mission has been around since 1892, which is a very long time. And I do love that longevity and the history that's there.
1892.
1892, 133 years this year.
Wow.
Yes. So really the mission started as an outreach to prostitutes in downtown Denver. And it was a group of women that were outreaching to other women and helping them through difficult times, I'm sure. And so over the years, it's evolved into different things, obviously. So our main focus is sheltering men and providing what you would say those critical needs to survive, right?
Absolutely.
Food, shelter.
Yes.
And that's what we are about, of course. That's what Jesus calls us to do, is to feed our neighbors and clothe them and help them. And so we do that at our core, but we're really about ending that cycle, breaking the cycle of homelessness and poverty.
That's beautiful. I know you have multiple communities or shelters where you serve, and correct me if I'm wrong, you serve different categories of people in need, or tell us more about that.
Absolutely. So we serve people from all walks of life, men, women, children. And so a lot of people know Denver Rescue Mission by our Jesus Saves. We have a big kind of neon 70s style cross on the corner of Park Avenue and Lawrence. So most Denverites or people even in Colorado might be familiar with that corner for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
And so basically that's our Lawrence Street shelter. That is our flagship building. And most people actually think that's the only place we have. So one of my favorite things about the job I get to do is tell people about that. And so right next door is our community center, Lawrence Street Community Center, where it's more of the daytime services, but we do provide that overnight shelter for men. If women show up, just as a quick note, we can refer them directly to our partners at Catholic Charities that are across the street.
Wonderful.
So we work hand in hand with a variety of partners around the area to make sure that if someone comes to us that we aren't able to serve directly, we can call a partner, which is great.
So I never knew that Denver Rescue Mission is actually right now specifically catering to men.
In a sense. So I would say the majority of who we serve are primarily men because of our sheltering system. And really, just to what I was saying about our different partners, Catholic Charities does shelter men as well, but they mostly shelter women now. And so instead of us trying to do both. I don't know what time period it was, but it was kind of agreed we're serving men. And so they have what we would call emergency or nightly shelter for women. And so we have another 48th Avenue Center, which is a very large shelter for men. 512 men can stay there.
Unbelievable.
It is funded by the city of Denver. So it's a great partnership that we've had for several years. Big facility. It takes a lot to run it. And it's another location outside of Jesus Saves Downtown. So a lot of people really don't know that it exists. But what happens is we connect with people typically at the street level at Lawrence Street. And then when they work with a case manager or an intake specialist, they'll say, looks like you're actually working. You have these challenges, and if you go over to the 48th Avenue Center, we'll hook you up with a case manager, and you can stay there, more of a semi-permanent bed until you get on housing lists, until you resolve some issues you might have, work on your debt, get an ID. You would be surprised how many people don't have identification.
Wow.
And that can take some time. So we work with the DMV and different agencies through the city and just those entities. You need to be a citizen of of Colorado, right? So we work with all that. So at 48th, large group of men there. And you asked, your initial question was, do we work with women also, or who else do we serve?
Yes.
So in total, with our shelter capacity, we can serve up to 1,000 men every night. We don't always reach that capacity. In the winter,
In the
we
winter,
absolutely
I'm sure
do.
you do, yes.
In the summer, it fluctuates, but we are generally pretty full all year. And so on the family and seniors and other populations, we serve them at a place called The Crossing. It's just in the North Park Hill area, and it includes families. So it can be, single parents. It can be grandparents sometimes that have custody of their grandchildren. And so it can be a senior. It can be an adult. So essentially, we have the Bridge program housed there. And then we also have the New Life program, which is really focused on addiction recovery for men.
I see.
So that really encompasses our Denver places. We do have an administrative building next door. That's where I work. And then we do intakes there. That's where HR is and all the support services. And then in the same area is our warehouse. We call it our Ministry Outreach Center. And that's where we really house and process all of the physical goods and donations that we get. People in the community are so generous and support Denver Rescue Mission. We wouldn't exist without wonderful people who keep us going, and companies and churches and everything. And so that is where we have furniture, we have food, cans, non-perishables, all the food that supports our different locations goes through there. It's a really unique building also. We have, a lot of people probably don't know this, we have a vehicle repair shop. So we have like an auto shop essentially. Wow. And we have men in our New Life program actually help based on how their program is when they have availability, and they fix up cars. And then when they graduate our program, they get a car.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so not every person works in the shop, but those who have those skills or are interested can learn and can develop those skills as well, and then get a car. So yeah, the Ministry Outreach Center has a lot going on. Additionally, it's a place where folks in the community who need extra food, clothing, things that just we all need to survive, but they just can't make that ends meet. They can come to a store, free store, and receive those items Monday through Friday. So I'm probably going way in depth.
No,
but
that's amazing. I think it's definitely worth mentioning because honestly, I've known Denver Rescue Mission since 2002 when I came here as an AmeriCorps and I was working with Urban Peak, and I was aware of Denver Rescue Mission also through our church supporting Champa House, which that was probably a program that closed.
It did close, yes, and was a wonderful women's program. And it was really absorbed by what I call the bridge program at the crossing. So
Very
we
cool.
are able to still serve women and families there.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I was saying I knew of Denver Rescue Mission, but I wasn't even aware of the impact, and I didn't even know you could serve 1,000 men a night or a day, and that's amazing. So thank you for going into that much detail. If I don't know, I'm sure many others don't.
I can touch on the Northern Colorado location
love
as
to.
well if you'd
Yes.
like. So really, we're Denver Rescue Mission, but we also have Fort Collins Rescue Mission right in Old Town, Fort Collins, and it's a men's shelter. So we probably had that location for about 10 years, and we're about to build a brand new, what we're calling Homelessness Resolution Center. So really, I think if you go back to maybe 2002 or even when I started working at the mission, that wasn't a phrase that was used, homeless resolution. And I think that's city governmental kind of
Yes,
term that
yes.
doesn't sound that great, but resolving the homelessness
Yes.
is the idea. It's kind of going
beautiful.
back to what our goals are. So we will be building a new center in Fort Collins in the next year, which is really exciting. And just north of there is Wellington. And Wellington is a small community, but we have a farm there. And Harvest Farm it's probably one of my favorite places to visit and leave because I'm a city girl at heart. But it just has this beautiful piece about it. It is a real farm. We have animals. We have about 100 acres, garden and chickens. And actually, apparently there's a llama there that's really mean these days. And I'm like,
funny.
that's scary. So I'll
That's
stay away
funny.
from the llama,
Yes.
but forget his name. Anyway, and so what we find is a lot of men getting away from the city life, and a lot of men find healing
and recovery.
and working with animals and
Yeah.
like being responsible
How
to another
beautiful.
animal and taking care of them, and all of that is really beautiful. And so there's a lot of healing, as you said, that can
Yeah.
happen at the farm.
Yeah, connecting with nature and
And some people say, actually, I'd rather be in the city, right? So it doesn't work for everybody, but it is serene, calm.
That's beautiful.
We have this like iconic looking barn that,
it's
just
amazing. I would love to go there sometime with you.
Yeah,
We should make
we
a
should.
trip. So how many men can the farm house or
Yes, it's about 75 men.
Wow.
And so there are, there's dorms and housing area on the farm. And then we have their meals and everything. There's a dining hall, things like that. There's, maintenance crew. There's a variety of things. And as part of their program, initially, it depends on where someone's coming from, because some folks, they might have gone through another rehab that didn't work and they might have relapsed, or they might be coming right out of a detox situation, or their mom dropped them off because it was the end of their rope, or relationships have been exhausted. And so anyway, people come from a variety of places there. And when they come to the farm, they can be there for up to a year. But the initial phase of their program is kind of just orienting themselves to a new situation.
Yes.
I've heard some of the men say it almost feels like camp because they're staying in a dorm and it just feels like a different feeling. But they start to do what we call work readiness. And so they'll work in the garden. They'll work with the cows and the llamas and all the animals. And that's where they begin to find that healing. And the other opportunities that exist include getting your GED.
beautiful?
If you can believe it or not, we've had men come who actually didn't know how to read. And being able to have a volunteer come in, or a staff member, a mentor come in and just help with that. Can you imagine the shame in just admitting that in today's society? So we've had those situations really at all of our locations where people come in with that baggage and that shame and all those things, but they're able to find that hope and move forward.
So at any given time, you said 1,000 men can be sheltered overnight, but are you referring to all the locations? Like the farm included and everything?
Actually, no. So when I say the 1,000 men, that's just the Denver shelters. If I talk about all of our program capacity, like how many people can we help on any given night, it's closer to about 1,500.
That's
And that would
amazing.
include Harvest Farm, Fort Collins Rescue Mission, The Crossing. That would include some of the families as well. And so any given night, we have a lot of people under our roofs.
incredible.
And really thanks to the support that we get, because that just keeps us going.
I know you do wonderful work. So how many people are employed to serve
Great question. We have close to 350 employees.
Wow.
What's really interesting that you might not know is pre-COVID, we had around 150, maybe 175. What changed was this 24/7 kind of model. And that kind of sounds strange, but yes, of course, before that, people came and slept in the shelter. But we didn't have 24/7. Maybe there'd be one person at the shelter overnight or two that were staff. But this 24/7 model has more staff. It has more services that are ongoing, I guess you could say. And so then we needed more people. Unfortunately, we didn't serve 1,000 people a night before COVID. It was maybe in the 800s or 700.
I see.
And so the need has increased also.
Since COVID? Because of COVID?
I think you could say that's a factor. And really, it's like there's a lot of repercussions from COVID. People might have lost jobs, had health issues, things like that. But the high cost of housing in Denver is a huge factor. So typically when there's annual studies and surveys on the Metro Denver population, they'll try to get a pinpoint of where are we and how many people are experiencing homelessness. And these days, it's about 10,000 people in Metro Denver that are experiencing homelessness on any given night. And that could be less or it could actually be more because you can't possibly count every single person who's in their car or staying with a friend who is technically homeless. And so it's difficult to really put a number on this stuff. But in terms of what Denver Rescue Mission has seen over the year, we did serve less people and you have seen increases in those counts and those studies that happen annually.
You mentioned that sometimes parents drop off their children. So what's your youngest age you are serving?
So you do have to be 18. We serve adults in the shelters. When I talked about our program at the Crossing, that's a family program, it would have to be a parent, guardian with a child. So Urban Peak and there's other Dry Bones, other ministries that support youth. We would certainly, refer to one of those if we did have one of those situations. But yes, it is primarily adults.
Do you guys partner with Samaritan House?
We do, yes. So when we're talking about downtown and where Jesus Saves is located, we're like right across the street from Samaritan House. And I believe they have some families, transitional type housing and men's shelter downtown. And they have the women's shelters as well. So certainly hitting a variety of people in need.
So thank you for sharing. You guys are doing tremendous work. Will you please share with us a story of someone who benefited from the Denver Rescue Mission services, a success story, let's say?
Yes, absolutely. There are so many, but one from more recently really sticks out to me. A man named James, maybe 60 years old. And just when you say that out loud, it breaks my heart to think that an older population would need the services of the mission. So it is that tension because I'm glad that we're here to help, but also it really breaks my heart to think of my aunt or uncle
or
at that age who would need those services. But the interesting thing about James is he was born blind. And so definitely probably had struggles throughout his life, but found himself homeless around the time of COVID and struggled. And some of his quotes and things that he said, just how scary and dark the streets can just be really, really difficult. And so James was able to connect with our team. He stayed in our shelter and we were able to find him housing. And there's so much joy in him. And I wish I could play you his video right now because it's kind of hard to express exactly what he says. But just so inspiring to think we serve people from all walks of life in all situations, but someone who just already has that challenge that they were born with and found themselves in a situation on the streets. I am just very inspired that the perseverance by him to keep going and to find the resources and to ask for help. Kind of what we were saying before, there is a lot of shame and just kind of that initial step.
It's hard to ask for help.
Absolutely it is. So that kind of comes up for me a lot when I think about different people I acted with over the years. I'm in communications, but when I do interact with people, I can just make them feel loved and cared for. And that's one thing I do love about just at the core. We're there to welcome people in and to love them no matter what. And those successes are, huge. And
Yes.
it isn't always a success for everybody. And we have had people, as we talked about our New Life program and folks with addictions and things, we've had people come back to the program, and because we know how powerful addiction can be and
Yes.
how challenging it is. And
they are relapsing and then returning to the program.
yes, so certainly even the word success is an interesting word, because if you said, well, how successful is Denver Rescue Mission's program? The numbers probably aren't as high as you would hope. However, we know that every interaction our staff has, a volunteer has, even myself, it can help somebody.
Absolutely.
And, really even showing them they're a child of God. We love them. That impact for the kingdom is at our core. That's what we want, is to people to know they're loved. And if they only come to us once for a meal and they feel that love, and maybe a piece of that is carried through wherever they go, then, we feel like we've done our job.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I would love to talk about your 4 amazing pillars that Denver Rescue Mission has them. But before we get there, give us more examples of life situations that are conducive to homelessness, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely.
Like, where do your people come from?
Yes, absolutely. And it really can be anywhere you could think of. From, you said, oh, that kind of sounds interesting that someone would drop their son or daughter off at Denver Rescue Mission.
Yeah.
A lot of those situations I've encountered are, so here's one example. Family lives in Denver, their son, is out of college and is working, and all the while an alcoholic. So there's a lot of people who may have different challenges or past traumas that are feeding that addiction, various things. And so that person is living in their parents' home, still an alcoholic, starting to go downhill, and a spiral starts to happen. Maybe they get fired from their job. They're just staying in their room and they're drinking or doing drugs, things like that. And the parents kind of get to a point where either they have to tell their son or their family member they can't be there anymore, or they have to make a really hard choice. And we've seen people drop their loved one off at the mission. And those situations are, I have 3 girls. I couldn't imagine dropping my kid off at a shelter and saying bye, right? But what I hear from other family members is they get to a point, they're at the end of their rope, and an individual maybe has exhausted every relationship that they and they literally have nowhere else to go. So either that's found on their own, or it's that family member might bring them to us. Kind of a totally different situation. A family came across this a couple of years ago. A family was moving here from out of state, and they put down a deposit on an apartment. Must have sent it through the bank, whatever. And deposits on apartments these days are not cheap, as we all know. And so they put that down. They got here. It was a total scam. I can't remember all of the ins and outs, but basically they get to the door and the landlord rejects them and they have nowhere to go. They find themselves living in their car, trying to figure stuff out. Often what people will do in that situation is they might blow through savings and go stay at a motel. And they're caring for children and trying to feed them. And they just moved to Denver and they don't maybe have a job lined up. And so that particular family that I'm thinking of did go to our bridge program at the crossing and was able to find some stability. Another example is mental health. So there can be a variety of different mental health challenges that folks go through. And often they can have a mental health issue and then sometimes can start getting into a cycle of addiction. And those two things combined can lead them down a path of finding themselves no job. They're evicted from their home. All of those things. And evictions is an interesting thing. The eviction rate in just the city of Denver has increased over the last few years. So I think like pre-COVID, it was like in the, thousands, and it was up to like 10,000 evictions just in 2024.
Wow.
And so some of that might be a COVID thing because a lot of people lost housing. There was like a cycle there. So yeah, I think you kind of just have to put on a different lens when you are
Judging or looking
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. When you are looking at people on the streets, you never know where they are coming from and what their situation was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of what I was maybe saying at the beginning a little
Yes.
bit is that you
Yes.
just don't know someone's situation. Another older woman example I'll use, I think she was around in her 50s. She was diagnosed with cancer. And I don't know all the ins and outs of her family situation, but it sounded like she didn't have support from her family, even during a cancer diagnosis. She was able to use our program and live there even while going under treatment, and then was able to come out the other side and find housing and things like that. So it's not always just the same scenario. It can be one of those things that people who might even be already a little bit on the margin, and one thing can lead to that
Yes.
struggle.
Yes. Do you remember the author? He wrote a book, Conversations with God. Neil something. In any case, I was in Romania in January and I went to see him. I mean, he was invited to speak at a conference in Romania, and I will find his name for the show notes for sure. But basically, he got an injury, I think a neck injury, and he couldn't get a job, and he was homeless for a while, and then he started writing books, and I don't remember exactly his story, but that for me, it's a perfect example of how it can happen to anyone, you know. Let's go to your beautiful, you have these beautiful 4 pillars, and I want you to do them justice because they are so precious, so feel free to read. You don't have to memorize them. This is not a test here. So tell us about your beautiful 4 pillars.
Yes. So we call it our Christ-centered approach. And just going back to that faith-based organization at our core and wanting to see every person through the lens of God. And so I'll name the 4 and then I can go into them.
Yes.
Engage mercifully, work holistically, speak truthfully, and believe in miracles. And that last one's my favorite one, I would say. But, you know, they're somewhat self-explanatory, but these, for lack of a better term, are like our core values as an organization, how we live out our faith. And so every employee actually does sign a statement of faith. So we are, you know, Christians at our core and people who want to do this work. And we really kind of talk about it often as that you're called to the work.
Yes,
it's really hard, especially those who work, we call it the front line. They're in the shelter every day, engaging with guests, working with them to bring them in, working with them to, hey, let's get you out of the situation.
Yes.
We have this New Life program. Maybe you want to join. So engaging mercifully, meaning we love each other, loving our neighbors, just seeing them again through without that judgment.
Yes.
Working holistically, we're complex beings and everyone comes in with baggage, right? And challenges, different backgrounds, different walks of life. And so just recognizing that. And from a staff perspective, we look at that in our caseworkers look at that, and there's a lot of things that they'll do with that information of where someone comes from, cultural values that they have, so that they can work with them versus maybe passing a judgment that they didn't even realize they were doing. So really trying to understand the individual.
Their background,
Their background.
Yes.
Speaking truthfully is that we have to be honest and direct because we're talking about people's lives and we take that very seriously, and we want to engage with everyone who comes through our doors, and not everyone who comes through our doors actually wants to engage with us or hear that truth because the truth is hard. And then that last one, believing in miracles, is that, you know, God does miracles. He can heal people and he can be a part of our day to day. And so just remembering that he's there and he's working in all of our different places and all of our hearts to help our staff and volunteers and those who work with our different guests and participants, help them feel loved and help them even just be empowered to take those steps that are really difficult. So
absolutely. That's beautiful. If I think of the world we live in right now and all that is happening, I don't think you need to be a Christian to use these beautiful values: engage fully, work holistically, speak truthfully, and believe in miracles. Those are beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Tell me, how can people engage with Denver Rescue Mission? What opportunities do you have for people to help?
Yes, so there's a variety of ways. I think the easiest and basic way is to volunteer and serve a meal. We have about 100 different volunteer shifts for serving or preparing meals across our locations.
Yes.
And so it's probably the quickest way to be like, what do they actually do in those buildings? And you know, I think sometimes even that for someone who has a heart for people experiencing homelessness and people that we serve, there is a kind of a barrier where taking that first step on that side to say, I really want to do something, but I'm just not sure. And even to that end, like our team is always willing to give tours of our different places. So that's an opportunity. But volunteering is huge. We need volunteers. We love our volunteers. They make a huge difference for our different teams. And so those are the basic ways. But we also have change maker volunteers, we call them.
Beautiful.
Change makers can do a variety of things. For example, we have a gentleman who comes and does a workout class for our New Life program. So this isn't necessarily in the shelters, but where our programs are held. And we have youth volunteers who come in and just play with the kids after school, also help them with their homework, tutoring volunteers. On the adult side, we have people who come in and can do like career development kind of things, like come in and do a resume workshop.
Yes.
We've worked with different people on that. We've had people do yoga class. So there's such a variety of ways to plug in. So even if you're actually like, oh, I wonder if they could use that service, we might. So I would just say reach out to us because we do have some of those unique ways that people can get involved. We have volunteer barbers actually that come in and they'll say, okay, I'm here for 2 hours and people can get their hair cut. And so some of those tangible things that we might not even think of. Our warehouse, our ministry outreach center I mentioned, that's kind of like more of a food bank style volunteer, but sorting goods, boxing them up, that stuff is super helpful to our teams and important. So we love our volunteers. They keep us going.
That's wonderful. I served meals there, and it's a very humbling experience because I was at the location on 48th serving breakfast, and a lot of people came through the line, and they were all so grateful, just so gracious and so grateful, and just getting ready to start their day, and it's amazing. It's very humbling.
We even have meal prep shifts.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to plug in, and I would even say if Lawrence Street downtown is something again that's like feels like a barrier for someone, the 48th Avenue Center, it's not downtown, so it's like a little easier to park.
Yes.
And each location also has different age requirements. So like I'm so excited to bring my own girls soon, but I believe our youngest is 13 with an adult. So yeah, you can check our website for all of that details or reach out to us. But I think just that giving back and just realizing how even it might seem small to come and serve a meal, but it makes a big difference.
It's huge. And if you bring a certain energy and you greet people looking them in the eye and say, have a great day, you can make an impact and start their day right, at least. Tell me about your turkey situation.
Yes. Well, I was going to say other ways to get involved, would be like we always need food. We need non-perishables, breakfast items, coffee, all the things that we all love. But in the holiday season, we do a big turkey drive.
How big?
Big. I know it's kind of hard to throw numbers out there because you're like, what does that even mean? But 15,000 turkeys is our goal. Frozen turkeys. We actually procure them. We have sponsors, but we need people to come and actually bring physical turkeys. A lot of groups will do it, like St. Catherine's has done it. Or you go to the store with your friends, everyone buys a turkey, and you bring them downtown and take your photo and all that kind of stuff. But really what's cool about this is Thanksgiving has become one of my favorite holidays.
Yes.
I buy like all the goofy. We have a turkey suit actually. If you ever want to wear it,
absolutely, I will be right there, baby.
Perfect. You are signed up for the turkey suit this year.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's beautiful because we kind of are this little hub for turkeys, and so majority of those, more than 10,000, actually go to what we call community partners. So variety of churches, some schools that might do their own outreach. They might have their own meal that they prepare, or they're adding it to a food box that they're giving out to folks in their different communities who are in need. And so we work with those partners to identify that. And then we give out 3,500 turkeys with a food box the week of Thanksgiving. And then, of course, actual Thanksgiving, our chefs and our different shelters and even up at the farm, all our locations where people are staying, they need to eat. So
Yeah.
we do traditional Thanksgiving meals and serve them there.
That's a lot of people to feed a Thanksgiving meal.
It is.
1,500 plus. I'm sure everybody shows up for their meal.
Yes, and they
Yes.
actually they'll start prepping like the week before because they want to make sure we have enough food, of course, for everybody, while also serving our 3 meals a day every
Yes.
single day of the year.
The
So it is a lot of fun, and it is a huge blessing that the community supports us, so then we can give that out to folks in need. So it's been a lot of fun over the years to to do that.
That's great. That's great. I can't wait to participate this year.
Yes, anyone can get involved, and the Thanksgiving food items are also needed. So like
Yes.
cranberry and stuffing and those tangible. So our ministry outreach center, I mentioned, it's in the Park Hill area. It's a donation center. We do accept, like I mentioned, furniture is actually a big thing for people who are moving into housing, because often when someone is leaving our shelter, which is a really good thing, and we've either helped them or they've found housing, they don't have anything. So often part of our program is actually this really cool way to get involved called a housewarming box. And we kind of came up with the concept of just essentials. So you need a towel, you need a bath mat, you need, a couple pots and
Utensils.
pans.
Yes.
Exactly. Just a plate. And so we've kind of come up with this basic box where you can actually go shop for those items, or you can make a donation and we'll procure those items.
Yes.
But it's really cool because basically you come out of a shelter or even a family, it's like you have to furnish a whole apartment or a studio or something like that all in one day. They don't often have those savings or those funds to do that. So it's often when folks have donated furniture to the mission, they can come and pick out furniture at the Ministry Outreach Center and then receive a housewarming box, which is
That's
really
beautiful. So this is for the program where people who have been in a shelter transition to housing?
Yes, it really could be someone coming out of shelter.
Yes.
Typically the 48th Avenue Center, because they've been working more closely with the case
Yes.
manager. And they get these housing lists where either it's a voucher. There's different systems for trying to get on a list for housing based on someone's need. There's like veteran housing funds,
Yes.
different things like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
And so they could be coming out of shelter, or they could be coming out of the New Life program,
I
or
see.
they could become a family that graduated
see.
our program. So really anyone from the mission, even Harvest Farm, we're trying to equip them with, hey, now you've gotten some tools and some help from the mission, and now the goal is to be on your own.
Yes.
And trying to equip folks with
Yes.
some of those basic necessities to put them on the right start.
Yes. And this is transitional housing, not permanent housing, right?
No, this is permanent housing, because really our bridge program is technically a transitional. They're kind of considered transitional spots, but these are most of the time it's actual permanent housing where they're paying rent, or they have maybe a voucher or disability funds or Social Security. They have funds coming in that can help pay for their housing. I think we were going to get into this earlier, but I might have forgotten to mention it. So in our last fiscal year, folks who were able to move into housing was around 600.
That's
600
amazing.
folks. So I know, again, we kind of were talking about success. Like we serve around 1,500 every night, but
Yeah.
600 households were able to find permanent housing,
That's amazing.
go and be on their own. And again, that's really a big goal
And
of
you
ours.
guys still keep in touch with them and kind of guide them? Are you
We
still
try
serving
to.
as a resource for
It's
them?
a great question, because our caseworkers and case managers really try to keep in touch, and they'll often say, oh, hey, like, do you need a Thanksgiving meal this year?
Yes.
Come on down and grab one for your home, and we'll just check in and see how you're doing. And
That's
they'll have
beautiful.
questionnaires and try to check in with people. But yes, it's really anyone who we would say exit shelter or graduates or doesn't even graduate our program. We really do try to keep in touch and keep the relationship going. But often people, they're ready to move on and distance themselves, which is also good, because
Absolutely.
that's what we want.
That means you've done your job well,
Exactly.
equip them with all necessary skills to take
Yeah.
flight on their own.
Exactly. Stand on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to mention that I'm not even sure we talked about before,
worries.
a new initiative that we're just starting is called Prevention. And so kind of what we were speaking to a little bit before is that folks come in from all walks of life, but sometimes it's that spiral effect of an illness, loss of a job, eviction, different things. And so what we're trying to do is actually work in some of our school systems and identify families that don't have a history of homelessness or poverty necessarily, but something happened. And within the school, they can identify that and say, hey, we have some funding to help you fix your car, pay that first month's rent and deposit for the apartment you're going into. A really good example, we just had this happen. A single mom had a domestic violence issue. She couldn't go to work for a couple of days. She had to be in the hospital and recover. And she was going to lose her job. She had a little bit of savings, but not enough to pay her rent for the next few months because she couldn't work and was losing money, right? And so what we were able to do was provide her next month's rent, provide her some food and things for her home to keep it stable, and she was able to keep her home and not fall into that next cycle of, okay, well, now I don't have a home and now where do I go? And all of those things. So it's trying to get upstream. And this is a whole new initiative that Denver Rescue Mission is going toward. Yeah. So really, it's kind of adding a branch, I guess, to what we do.
That's beautiful.
So we're really excited to launch that.
Working from both ends. That's amazing. That's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you didn't forget that one because it's huge.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about our partnership, and maybe you can give us some more details about that program.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about this. So working with the Open Soul Foundation and Denver Rescue Mission's Youth Center. So at the crossing is the location where families they're in the program. And so the kids get to go to a youth center 5 days a week after school. And then in the summer, there's different programming for them to attend. And ages basically 3 to 18. And then we do have a 0 to 3 playroom that we're trying to figure out what that might look like. But essentially, school-age children that can come and get resources. I mentioned volunteering. There's after-school tutoring. And really trying to break the cycle of poverty there so that there's a statistic, and I hope I get it right, around 85% of youth who experience homelessness as a child could experience it as an adult.
Ooh.
And so I may have to fact check myself on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the right stat. And so that's pretty high.
Yes.
So our goal is they're already with us, right? So on the fringe, we're going to work on prevention. But with the folks who come to us to the crossing and are in the program, we can work with them right where they are and meet them where they are, whether they've had trauma, whatever's been going on with that family. We work with the youth. We have a youth team, MC, and you'll get to meet her soon.
Yes.
Fantastic group that they work with the youth, but their goal is this 2-generation model. They're also focusing on the parents or whoever the caregiver in that family is, because if there's some issues or trauma or whatever it is that caregiver or that parent has had, that's trickling to the youth.
Yes.
And so working both ways.
Beautiful.
So they're going to work, and they work with the school. So if a kiddo's having some challenges at school, our team can actually help because the parent has just barely been getting by a lot of times. That's why they're with us. So they're probably at work, and our team can fill that void while they're with us. And so working from both angles. And what I'm super excited about is that the Open Soul Foundation is able to support things like kids going to camp, some different needs maybe around the holidays, like birthday parties, just things that really let the kids be kids because they've often not been kids or they've been through things that are hard. And so that is going to be such a beautiful partnership. And we're super excited for the support and appreciative of you and just really excited to see what it brings over this next year.
Yes. And I'm going to meet with MC pretty soon. And we want to do something every month where we go over the exciting things that happened, and we'll get more details there. But in the meantime, we are grateful for your work and happy to partner with you because we know exactly what's happening and we know where the contributions are going, and you do fantastic work. I have one more question, but before that final question, how should people treat homeless people? It's interesting because sometimes it's like, oh, don't give them money and they're going to go get a beer or drugs. What's the narrative within your organization? I'm just curious.
That's an excellent question. I think it often is an individual choice, obviously. Number one is that you treat people with dignity, that they're a fellow human. You can see Christ in them, and just offering that little bit of respect, a smile, holding a door, depends on where you are, if you're driving or going by, and
or looking at them and saying hi.
In the eye,
Yes.
that eye contact, or you can ask someone their name. What's your name?
Yeah.
One of our employees that actually just retired after 33 years, Lisette, amazing woman, and I'm bittersweet that she's retired, but she would say, I would just ask them how I could pray for them. And most of the time, they would say something, you know? And so that's a great question to ask. Sometimes people may not want to engage. They might just want that dollar from your pocket that is your choice to give. So we encourage, if you're going to give something, that it is maybe a gift card or a granola bar or socks. On our website even, we've put together a list of people always need socks, they always want water, and I think the third one was maybe a snack. But there's those things that you can give that are pretty simple. And even with families, excuse me, my girls, and actually we've done it at St. Catherine with the youth group, is made blessing bags. You put a couple things in there, toothbrush, sunscreen, chapstick, or you can do even write a little note. It's something that you can give and acknowledge another human being. We don't know if you do decide to give cash, you don't know where that's going. But again, that's your own choice to make. If you feel led to give that person some money, a lot of times we've talked to people over the years on like, where did you panhandle? What was that like for you? I can't imagine standing on a corner for 4 hours and asking for money. That would be really difficult because I bet there are some people who are not very nice and there are probably people who are nice. You probably get everything in between. But they've said, hey, I knew I needed to get $50 so I could go get a hotel room that night. And so if that's $1 that you give, that maybe is helping that person get a hotel room. So we would never fault anyone for wanting to do that, but it's definitely that personal choice because we've also heard I use that money for drugs or alcohol. So it really can go in any direction. The other thing we offer that is on our website, and I could give you some of these, is it's just a little service card, and it just lists the direct phone number of our shelter, of our New Life program, our store that I mentioned. So it's just a resource card. I know even City of Denver, I'm sure many cities have like, here's just a little resource card. You could print it out and it's just something to hand someone, whether you're walking by or you're at a stoplight and you have a second to say hi versus just completely ignoring someone. And I think it's hard because I work at Denver Rescue Mission and I drive around the city, and there are a lot of people in need. So we all know we can't help every single person on every corner. And it's hard. I've recently saw in the heat a woman who was very pregnant, and I just wanted to put her in my car and take her somewhere. And it's not always safe or possible to do that, but you know, each one of us can have that compassion. If you feel like led to say a prayer for that person, or hand them a bottle of water, it's a little thing that could go a long way.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I have friends who have brown bags in their cars all the time. I mean, at any point, at any time, winter or summer, they are thirsty.
100%.
You know, and a
at
bottle
this
of
altitude
water.
Especially.
Exactly. I didn't even think about that. And in the heat. Anyways, what's one thing that you would like our listeners to take away about your work, about anything? Homelessness?
Yes, I think a few things. Probably a little bit where I started is just that viewing people just through a lens of love and through non-judgment, and just trying to realize that there's a person, there's a story, there's a background, just like we all have. All have the place we grew up, our different circumstances,
Yes.
different cultures that we come from, and we bring that with us, and so do they. And so whether it's seeing someone on the streets or walking by or whatever, I think it's just trying to have that compassion. So I would definitely just reiterate that point.
So in other words, engage mercifully.
Engage mercifully. Thank you.
You're very
wow,
welcome.
You're hired.
It's so funny.
And then I'll use our believe in miracles because
Yes.
you know, again, just that change is possible. It does happen. We are a hope organization that relies on hope and love and faith a lot, and me as an individual as well. And just that it happens in those positive stories. They are there. We can share videos with you, and I think just in our world and the challenges that we find, just finding those little bits of hope wherever we can be and believing in miracles is huge.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. You know, it's interesting. I've heard something recently where someone said, in America, we think that the highest role in our society or the highest position is the president. But actually, that's not true. It's the citizen. So it's amazing what we can do at our own level in our own little corner of the world. So thank you for being one of these wonderful citizens and a dear friend, and for your incredible work and all that you do as an organization. And like I said, we are excited for our partnership and very, very grateful for the work and the sweat and tears and prayers and efforts you put into this wonderful ministry to help and to guide and to make this world a little bit better.
Amen to that. Well, thank you for having me and just for the partnership. I'm really excited. I'm thinking months from now, we're going to have like more stories to tell. If
I
you
can't wait.
Get to talk to MC, you'll get to unravel things from other angles. But it's a real privilege to talk with you. And thank you for
Yay.
having me.
Thank you, Alexxa. We did it.
Woo!
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Bible Chat podcast. We hope today's conversation with Alexxa has inspired you to engage mercifully, work holistically, speak truthfully, and believe in miracles, reflecting the heart of Christ in our world. If this discussion has touched you, please support the Ember Rescue Mission and their incredible ministry. Don't forget to download the Bible Chat app, your spiritual companion, where we can connect, grow, and discover God's love alongside others. Let's keep seeking, serving, and growing together in faith. Until next time, may God's peace and love guide our lives.